Welcome into Duval Daily, presented by GenJag.com. I'm Jordan Lugo. Thanks so much for tuning in here on Tuesday, January 16th, second show of the day. Chris Harris, according to Albert Breer, is interviewing for the Jacksonville Jaguars defensive coordinator job today. Also, according to Breer, Harris was a runner-up for the Packers DC job and has been really close to landing some defensive coordinator jobs over the last several years. I'll be honest with y'all, I did not know a ton about Chris Harris prior to hearing his name, that he was going to be interviewing for the Jaguars job. So we've done some research, done some digging into what he could bring to the table for the Jaguars. Going to talk about him here today for y'all. If you enjoy the content here, please like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. You can also check out genjag.com/shop, pick up some new Duval gear. So Chris Harris is a former NFL safety, not to be confused with the Chris Harris who was playing nickel for the last decade or so in the NFL. He was a safety though. 6th-round pick out of Louisiana Monroe, did finish his career in Jacksonville in 2012, retired right after that season after he was released by the Jags. So hopefully doesn't harbor any resentment about being released by the team. It sounds like he was ready to hang it up though. He is 41 years old, so a younger coach. As a coach in the NFL, he was with the Bears in 2013, 2014. Then with the Chargers from 2016 to 2019 as an assistant defensive back coach, DB coach for the Commanders from 2020 to 2022, and then Titans defensive pass game coordinator and cornerbacks coach for the last 2 years under Shane Bowen, under Mike Vrabel. So if he gets this job in Jacksonville, it would be his first stint as a defensive coordinator. And one thing we've talked about is I think it would be good for the Jaguars to potentially hire a guy that has already been there and done that at defensive coordinator, just from a standpoint of knowing what they need to be doing every single day as the DC, knowing their past experience as DC, maybe what they did well, what they needed to improve upon. But, you see defensive coordinators that have success in the NFL without having prior experience. So we'll see how it all plays out there. But again, Titans defensive pass game coordinator and cornerbacks coach for the last 2 years. He has experience in different types of defenses. Most recently with the Titans, it's been a 3-4 scheme. They play tough. They try to eliminate explosives. They try to keep things in front of them while also changing the picture on the back end post snap, the coverage picture. So I think from a philosophical standpoint, you like all those ideals. You can't really be static in today's NFL unless you just have one of the top 2 or 3 defenses from a talent standpoint. Unless you're just loaded at every position, you do need to be able to be multiple to be able to change the picture on offenses. So I like that. I like that he comes from that background, but at the same time, he coached under Gus Bradley for 3 years with the Chargers, and we all know what Gus Bradley likes to do on the defensive side of the ball. Heavy cover 3 defense, not a ton of blitzing, and he was a holdover there from 2 different staffs. He was there in 16 prior to Gus Bradley getting there, prior to that staff being there. And so I think that's impressive. I think that says a lot about him, that he was a holdover from one staff to another, and that they interviewed him and they decided they needed to keep him around. And with these last 2 staffs he's been on, even though they are different types of defenses, no question about it, a lot of zone coverage. Not the same types of zone coverage, but a lot of zone coverage. And I think that is good for what the Jaguars currently have from a personnel perspective on the back end. I absolutely do. I think when you talk about who they have back there, Tyson Campbell, Darius Williams, Trey Herndon is a free agent, but there's a decent chance they bring him back. They've been bringing him back the last few years. Those guys are very, very good zone cover corners. They really struggle when you run a ton of man. Now, I think Tyson Campbell was better in man coverage in 2022 when he was healthy, but it's still very clear, very apparent that when he is in zone with his eyes in the backfield, he is much more comfortable. I think you can absolutely say that about Darius Williams as well. Darius is a really good player, but he's small. He's 5'10", 5'11", maybe on a good day, 180-something pounds. He's not a big player. So when you're talking about matching up with these big boundary receivers in man-to-man coverage, that can be difficult, right? I think you want both of those guys to be playing in a defense that accentuates what they do well. Because I do think that they both are deserving of being back here in Jacksonville in 2024 and being starters. I think they've played that well. Obviously, Tyson Campbell was dealing with the injuries in 2023 and wasn't quite his normal self. But I think that there's no question about it in my mind that he should be a starter for you on the outside next year, and so should Darius Williams. Even with Darius Williams having the contract that he has, the Jaguars could cut him and save $10 million against the cap in 2024. I think they would be wise to just extend him for a year or two instead of deciding to cut him, keep him around, go get a defensive coordinator that wants to run a lot more zone coverage than man, vary things up on the back end. Obviously, you don't want to be static, as I mentioned, but I think you need someone that's going to be wanting to run zone coverage 20 to 25% of the time to really support what you have on your defense. And it's not only the corners, right? You look at these linebackers the Jaguars have, they are so much better in zone coverage than man coverage. Devin Lloyd and Foye Oluokun. I think that that's where you've got to go. And there's a couple names that they've been interested in that do run a lot more man coverage. Wink Martindale, we just talked about over the weekend. He's going to be interviewing for the job. When you talk about who Chris Harris is, though, again, this is where I just haven't seen him a ton as a coach, right? He's not been a defensive coordinator that meets with the media a ton. So you kind of have to dig a little bit. What I've seen is that he is very high energy on the practice field and in the meeting room from what I've read and what I've seen. I like the youth that he brings at 41 years old. He's not just 41, and that's why I'm saying he brings youth. No, he has a youthful demeanor to the way he comes and approaches his job every day. He talks about attention to detail a lot, which will be critical for this football team. I do not think that the attention to detail was there in 2023 down the stretch. Absolutely. I think they lost that for some reason. Communicating, teaching, and having these guys locked in on their assignment, on how the offense is going to test their rules on a given play is going to be critical. I think Chris Harris is a guy who will be locked in on the details. The Jaguars, they already interviewed Ravens pass game coordinator and secondary coach Chris Hewitt. They interviewed him over the weekend. They've got Wink Martindale coming up, who has been a defensive coordinator for a long time, loves to run a lot of man coverage. They've also got Shane Bowen coming up, former Titans defensive coordinator, Chris Harris's boss over the last couple years. Reportedly want to meet with Marquand Manuel as well from the Jets, who has also been a defensive coordinator with the Falcons. They were requested and denied. Jero Evero and Ryan Nielsen of the Panthers and Falcons, respectively. We'll see if they're able to go get those guys in the building on potential interviews after things shake out with the Panthers and Falcons. We'll see how it plays out. But yeah, Chris Harris, according to Albert Breer, is interviewing for the Jaguars defensive coordinator job with the team today. Really appreciate y'all tuning in. If you enjoy the content here, again, please like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. You can also check out genjag.com/shop, pick up some new Duval gear. Y'all have a good one.